So James, you're the first person in maybe over 10 years whose shoes beautifully match, if I may say that, with the entry hall carpet. I knew you would do that because you're such an incredible dresser. In fact, I sort of feel like you design a little bit like you dress, which is old school, glamour, practical, but a little whimsical.
Thank you. Thank you. You know, you should have seen this place when we bought it. The only thing it had going for it was like this great ceiling height. We actually raised the doors because they were only 7 feet tall, so they looked like little midget doors with 12-foot ceilings.
That's so interesting.
And then it's like, when we saw it, I knew like, you can't add ceiling height, but you can add detail and everything else. So, you know, we introduced all these things and all these architectural details that we liked. We had a great architect, Ron Czajka, who helped me sort of to interpret those things. Like, you know, the doors are Georges Geffroy, who designed for Dior and
of course, fashion.
Absolutely.
Right, you're playing the whole fashion
it
card
goes
with
back
you.
to fashion
Yes.
a lot of times. Yeah, so and I think leopard goes with everything, whether it's
it's a neutral.
an interior or
It's a necessary neutral.
or clothing.
Yes, yes. So you've got these doors. I mean, again, when I go back to, because I've always been such an admirer of how you dress whenever I've seen you over the years at events, I was excited to see this place because you being a designer and now designing for yourself, what would you give yourself as a gift? And the first thing I remark upon is this delicious glossy chocolate for the walls, which instantly infused glamour in here.
Absolutely. And this is kind of like something, I think there's fights between Billy Baldwin, Albert Hadley, and David Hicks, who all used a version of this color. This is probably closer to Albert Hadley's version, which he called creosote. But I loved it because it's so glamorous, and the dark color becomes a perfect backdrop because the intention of this room was kind of like gallery for Scott, sort of / salon, a place to invite people, you know, to see his art. But it becomes a neutral. So when he changes, like now it's maritime, then he's going to do a portrait series.
Yes.
And then we'll hang all the portraits, and it becomes,
oh.
And they'll look great here.
Oh, so right now it's all his work, maritime work.
Exactly.
And then you're saying you're open to maybe 3 years from now, it could all be portraiture?
Yeah, or sooner.
Or even sooner.
Yeah, he's working on a portrait series with like people like Jacqueline de Rive and that type of thing. So, you know, and that will look great against this wall color because everything looks good in this room.
And, you know, again, going back to fashion, when I think of how you've hung his work, I almost think of like, that's exactly like the chain of my purse today.
Yes.
The way that you've added accessories to the way you've displayed his art.
Yeah, and again, it looks good, but going back to what you said about sort of practicality as well, is that with lacquer walls, you don't want to be hanging a million nails every time you change the art.
Oh,
and
yeah.
so the chain allows you to do that without damaging the walls.
You are, as I said before, very practical, and you infuse that with glamour. And I see this also with your furniture. Some of these pieces, I'm going to guess, are vintage, and some have you designed just to, because this space isn't huge. This is a little maisonette. I love saying that word. When does it say it a lot? Maisonette. Come to my maisonette. Yeah. Am I saying it correctly?
Maisonette.
Oh, maisonette, maisonette. Come to my maisonette, Susanna. And I did. And so how does one go about creating seating in a small living room space?
It's about scale of pieces. And it's about how can you, if you want to use this as a salon type of thing, how many people can you pack in here comfortably where it doesn't feel crowded? And
well, my answer is probably a lot right now. Looking, I mean, you've got this incredible sofa.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the things that I designed in here, this sofa, of course, based on the Hubert de Givenchy sofa. And I've always loved it and thought the idea of this sort of the brown velvet against the lacquer walls, I thought was kind of a super sort of glamorous kind of combination. This little curved sofa to fit in the corner.
That was so smart.
Yeah, and that's kind of based on an Elsa Schiaparelli design. So again, going back to fashion somehow.
As your inspiration of how you live and pulling those kind of fashion cues into how to solve problems and make this place look fabulous.
Absolutely. This chair is Dupré-Lafon, but the scale is small, but you know, you sat in it and it's certainly quite comfortable.
Incredibly so.
But again, it doesn't make the room feel like sometimes people overscale the furniture.
Yes.
And then, you know, here, you know, you get these French Louis XVI chairs. They work. People can sit on the ottoman. So there's lots of options for seating, but it doesn't feel crowded.
I also want to point out, and you mentioned this earlier with all the doors, and this is something that Albert Hadley did a lot, is the sense of geometry here.
Yes.
Whether, you've put it on the floors here.
That's right.
You have it already in the doors. Look at this, the piping here. Yeah. It's all very intentional, I'm sure. What do you feel? Not only does it bring a kind of visual layer that it's delightful, but what do you feel like it can also do if, for people to encourage people to use it?
Yeah, it's interesting too, because it's like these two chairs are diametrically opposed, which I think visually is more interesting, but it's also sort of like, you want people to feel like, if a bunch of people are in here, they're not so separate from each other. So these kind of face each other.
Yes.
And yet we can talk to these people if they're sitting over there. So there's a connectivity sort of going on, because no one's that far away from anyone, but yet everyone can sit down and sort of enjoy being in the room and not feel like they're out in left field somewhere.
I feel like this room, it must be like it's always ready for its close-up. Yeah. It's not fussy in here, but it's just like it comes to play. I could imagine reading a book here, and I could imagine having a cocktail party for 20 people here.
Absolutely. This sofa is actually so comfortable that Scott will quite often have a nap on the sofa.
I can see that.
And it's also very funny too, because he's from California, he's super casual, and the apartment's kind of elegant, but the juxtaposition that I love is him barefoot in jeans and in a t-shirt. So as you can see in the rest of the apartment, kind of nothing was neglected, and then for some reason we were thinking the kitchen walls could just be white, but then I realized by comparison it really looked like a big fat nothing. So we thought, we need to do something. We have these beautiful cork floors, and I thought to bring in something like that. So I sort of worked with my friends at Fromental to come up with this scenic wallpaper that kind of references Jean Dunand, and so we have a Jean Dunand deer in here, and birds, and then there's dragonflies and butterflies, and it was just what this room needed, because it brings it to life. And why should this room be neglected when everything else is so wonderful?
Oh my gosh, James, look what you guys did. Look what you did in here. Talk about geometry. This rug, the bed, this is incredible.
Yeah. My inspiration here was what Renzo Mongiardino did for Lee Radziwill in her London drawing room. He literally used Indian bedspreads on her walls, which have the borders in the field, and he chopped them up to create what we did here with panels. So
it's almost like a patchwork, but the same.
Exactly. So what I did is I bought a vintage Indian bedspread. It wasn't this color, it was close. And then I worked with my friends at Fromental, and they dissected it all to create borders and field, and we replicated what was done for Radziwill.
Wait a minute, walk me through this again. Okay, I'm seeing a bedspread here.
Yes.
Was that the inspiration? You used that as a bedspread, but then you turned that into that? Or
do you remember like Pier 1 Imports would have these hand block Indian bedspreads?
Totally.
Right? So it was like that, but an antique one.
Okay.
So I found one of those.
Right.
And then I was thinking I was literally going to use the bedspreads, but I realized to find as many as I needed wasn't going to happen. So,
got it.
So then I showed it to Fromental, and they said, "Oh, we can totally do that." So they dissected it, and they created this is was the field, and then there's all these different borders, and they cut the borders off, and then we were able to then create these panels like this.
Wow, this is really custom.
Absolutely.
But in a very practical, anyone could do this if they thought about it long enough.
Absolutely.
You're an inspiration for them.
If they were crafty.
But I keep trying to tell people that if something isn't what you love, but you feel inspired, you're getting close to it, don't be afraid to customize. It doesn't have to be, maybe you can't afford to go to a Fromental kind of level,
right.
But you could get your painter or a tailor, someone in town to help you realize your vision.
Absolutely. And in this case, we were lucky because they were able to do matching fabric.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you next. So they did that, and then they made fabric for you?
Exactly. Then once the paper was up, the curtain hanger came and matched the horizontal lines. So, which is what Mongiardino did for Radziwill as well, because if you look at images of that room, the curtains line up with the panels.
Wow. It's so thoughtful in here, but again, it doesn't feel fussy. It feels very, there's just something very freeing about being in here. You would never know that you were in Manhattan with a busy avenue there and all this stuff going on. This really feels like a jewel box.
And the color is like, most people find it very soothing.
Yes.
So for a bedroom, that's kind of nice. And Scott loves blue, like a lot of guys. So that's one thing that we had to do. But it kind of, I think this room, because of the Indian bedspread idea, I wanted to play up this idea of sort of opulent boheme. So like the Syrian mirror, the mother of pearl table is from Bazaar Tindouf in Tangier. I'm not sure you went there or not. But then, it's just all these different things. And putting an ikat on a Louis XVI chair.
Yeah, that was a bold move.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, but it kind of works.
To me, it takes it to another level because the yin and the yang, the surprise of the two different time periods.
Absolutely. And it becomes another room to display Scott's artwork.
Okay, so he did this?
Yes.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like, I unfairly just put him in the maritime and maybe some portraits. He did that? I mean...
Gilded porcupine, the flamingos, the scarlet ibis, or ibis. So, yeah.
And look how you've hung them. Again, like you did in there. But talk to me about, again, you have a brass rod.
Yes.
And then you did like a sort of chain of the double chain. I love that.
Yeah. So what's interesting is you can't find these rods in the U.S. It's a UK thing.
Oh,
so
there's
different companies in the UK that do them, and it's the rods, the brackets, the chain, and the hooks, and those special hooks that you put on the back of them. So again, we wanted this room to have the flexibility to
hang. He changes it up.
Exactly.
I kind of don't want him to because this is so incredible.
Yeah.
But I like, I think people give up too soon sometimes in design. That sounds so overwhelming. I could never do that. But if you have some patience and forethought and creativity, like you were telling me in your kitchen, how those faucets you saw somewhere.
Yeah.
Was it in Europe and then you just found them on eBay or?
They had been discontinued or they were too expensive or whatever it was, and we...
You didn't let that stop you?
No. So, and voila, eBay. So, and we found them new in box. So.
That should be their new tagline, and voila, eBay. How about the lampshades that have the same vibe of the icon?
Again, I found these rock crystal lamps. I love rock crystal. So, but I thought to fit in with the room, to then add another pattern like this sort of ikat, which I think makes an unusual lampshade, but yet it kind of blends in beautifully with everything.
It blends in beautifully, but you didn't over worry, and I always hope people understand this. Don't worry so much about things not going, because everything can kind of coexist with a little bit of spontaneity and also thoughtfulness, right? Your blues don't exactly go, well, that kind of exactly goes, but the way the bedspread is a little bit of a different shade of blue than this.
Absolutely. And again, the bed is kind of a mix of high-low because it's matuk bedding, which is rather expensive, but it's with a very inexpensive patchwork Indian print bedspread.
Yeah, exactly. I can tell that is not precious. I kind of want to take it from you right now. I love it so much. But talk to me also about, I love a lot of pillows. I like this display idea. If you do have high ceilings and you have a rather dramatic bed, which you do here, that you gave it the 3-pillow effect on top of each other. I'm always going out this way. Yeah. Now I'm going to copy this of going up this way.
I just think, in a way, I think it shows off the prettiness of these scallops more.
Yes. And much more than if you hadn't.
When I worked for Albert Hadley, and Albert always insisted that the beds go to the ceiling because it just brings your eye up.
Yes.
So a lot of times, if you had a room like this and the bed was only like 7 feet, it would look like a little dwarf bed.
Yes.
Whereas this kind of like, I could have gone even a little higher, but this is 11 feet. So
it just brings your eye up. But again, great tip for the pillows. They don't have to go out this way. We can go vertical.
Absolutely. So bathroom, kind of average size, but again, great ceiling height. We wanted to do something, again, another opportunity to showcase art. So this Pharaon ball closet stripe, great backdrop. The floor is based on sort of a classical Roman Greco sort of pattern. And then we did this enclosure here with the shower with sort of these large bricks of Carrara. I love these Derby 1930 style the toilets. I think they're fabulous. So part of the idea with Scott's apartment is this sort of artist in residence, and that would be sort of his studio is here. The apartment also acts as gallery because it's a great showcase of his work. It used to be that one would need a gallery if you were an artist or a studio if you were an actress, and now we can sort of take more control of our lives I think, with the internet, and then create our own gallery. So this apartment, what became very important about it is that it acted as backdrop for Scott's works, and then also this idea of salon, to have different people over that are in the worlds of design, decoration, the arts, etc., so they can see what he's working on. And we have these, well, right now it's all hung with his maritime work, but he does portraiture, he does botanicals, he does all kinds of things. And he's working on an upcoming series of portraits, one of Jacqueline de Ribes, for example, which is pretty fabulous. And so that room will be hung with portraits. And it kind of gives an excuse to have a little soiree and invite people over, and it gives them a chance to see the work. And that's why we also sort of did these brown walls, because everything looks great against it. And this is his playroom. This is where he has fun, kind of just exploring all the different kinds of things that he wants to explore. And he always says, well, I'm thinking about doing, I'm like, do it. I said, make a note of it and explore it, have fun with it, because I think that's what it's all about.
Don't miss another video visit. Click on the orange Q to subscribe and have Quintessence virtually delivered from our doorstep to yours.